Okay, guys, day 5 of Unit 1B, we are going to look at determining equations once we have the roots. So here's the deal about this guy. If I have roots here of, I don't know, let's make this up here, 1 and 6. Okay, those are my roots. If I know those are the roots, that's great, but I don't know the equation for this problem because there are an infinite number of parabolas that have the same roots. So for example, I'm going to have this guy here, up here, I can have this guy here, right? I can also have this one here that have those roots. Oops, I missed. But you know what I'm talking about, okay? So all those are possible equations, but the difference is, let's just look at these two here. These guys here only go through the same point once. Amazing, eh? Just here, or twice, sorry, at the roots, here and here. They do not share any other points. So if I drew this carefully, I'd have one like this, and the other one would be like this, okay? And here are my roots here and here. And if you look, that looks like I'm drawing a happy face almost on a finger. It's kind of weird. But if I watch carefully here, these guys, the yellow and the blue lines, only meet here and here. So if I can come back and say, oh yeah, by the way, these are the zeros and it travels through this point here, then I can figure out that I'm talking about this parabola right here. So there are two types of questions. One's a lot easier than the other. They're both okay in the long run. But let's delete some of this stuff here. One of them is a little simpler because the roots themselves are whole numbers. So if I have something like this is from your note. If I have something like this, roots of x equals plus and minus 2, then and I'm going through a point, and the point that I'm going to go through is 0, 3, and I want to find the equation. What I do is I set it up in basic factored form, which is y is equal to a bracket x minus r x minus t, or s, sorry, or s and t, depending on, I've seen both in different textbooks, so r and s or s and t. Those are my zeros, r and s. So I sub this in, and I say that my zeros are plus 2, so I change this minus 2, and the other one is minus 2, and I change the sign because there's negative here, and this becomes a plus. So don't forget to change your sign. So for example, if my zeros were 0 and 9, or let's say negative 6 and 9, just make it easier, then I'd have x plus 6, x minus 9, okay? Minus becomes a plus, plus becomes a minus. Okay, but I'm not, I'm doing this one here. So that's great, I've subbed that in, so I sub that in. Next thing, I'm going to sub 0, 3 in for xy, replace x and y, because I know that it goes through a point 0, 3, and I know that that is my x coordinate for a point, that's my y coordinate for a point. So I'll do that, and then I'll be left with the one variable only, and that's a. That's an a. Jeez. That's an a. And that becomes 0 minus 2 because x is 0, 0 plus 2 because x is 0. And I sub that in, and now I'm going to solve. So 3 is equal to a. 0 minus 2 is minus 2. 0 plus 2 is 2. Multiply, that's negative 4a is equal to 3. A itself is negative 3/4. Okay, then I go back and I just sub in over here, back to this point here. I go back and I sub in for a, just so I have my equation. So y is equal to this, or f at x is equal to this. And this is negative 3/4 x minus 2, x plus 2. So that's my equation. So straightforward, sub in the points here, sub in the zeros here, sub in the point, the other point you know here, and solve for it. So the same thing, oh, I know what's going on here. The same thing can be done when you have roots that are not whole numbers. So if my two roots are 2 plus root 5 and 2 minus root 5, because I went through the quadratic equation and that's what I got, you can sub these right in. I'm going to show you two different ways to do this, but you can sub them right into this equation. And it gets a bit sloppy, but it's not as bad as it looks, I guess. So here it's a bracket x, and then I have minus this root here. So my two roots are going to be minus, or 2 plus root 5, and the other one is going to be x subtract, oh, what am I doing here? X subtract 2 minus root 5. Okay, so that's one root is 2 plus root 5, that's here. One root is 2 minus root 5, that's here. We're going to do the same thing as we did before. We're going to clean this up a bit, but so this is going to be, let's clean this up. So take this bracket out, so that's x minus all of this, so it's minus 2 minus root 5. And this is x minus 2 plus root 5. Got to change that sign, so subtract this, open up that bracket, and I'm left with that. Now the neat thing here, there's two different ways to do this. This is kind of neat, and I'll show you the short form in a second. The neat thing here is that I have x minus 2 and x minus 2, and then I have minus root 5 and plus root 5, and that's the difference of squares. Okay, so what I can do is I can factor this, and I can factor this into a, so a is here, a is the a from the parabola. It's going to be this squared, so x minus 2 squared minus root 5 squared. Okay, and that's just a little trick we use. Okay, it's this, subtract this, and the same thing plus this. And if that's the case, you can take this expanded form and factor it into its condensed form here. Okay, so that's the factored form there. And then what you can do is actually expand these and get x squared. So you're going to FOIL this out. X squared minus 4x plus 4. Subtract root 5 times root 5 is 5. That turns into a x squared minus 4x minus 1. Put these together. And now at this point, what you'll do is you'll sub in the point 5, negative 8 in for x and y. So you're going to go negative 8 is equal to a 5 squared minus 4 times 5 minus 1. And then you're going to solve for a, just like we did before. And that is going to be, this whole thing turns into 4. So it's a times 4, 4a. And then a is then negative 2. Is it negative 2 or positive? So this turns into, let me make sure, 20. Yep, so it'll be negative 2. Okay, and then you throw that into, and then your equation then would be, going back to this point here, the equation in standard form would then be f at x or y is equal to negative 2 bracket x squared minus 4x minus 1, and expand that out to negative x squared plus 8x